the rumours were starting to fly around the business. It was like some people were like, oh, there's no problem at all, we're absolutely fine. Other people's like, we're going bust tomorrow, and every attitude, every belief in between. So we had to share very clearly what was happening with this, what the numbers were, what this meant, and by being transparent, it meant that really killed the rumours and basically get people sort of focus on the day job.
And then you, with Jam Jar, you work and invest in so many amazing brands. I think Lucky Saint have been on this podcast. Who Gives a Crap have been on this podcast.
Yeah.
What would you say are the principles and like the absolute bare minimum requirements for brands to have, whether that's like, for brands to have to remain anti-fragile in today's climate?
Yeah, I think the brands have got to stand for something that consumers care about, and I suppose always deliver on that trust. And I think that's the sort of outward bit, but the inward bit is just as important. They've got to be built on a foundation and culture of people who share a common mission and give a damn about what they're doing and will work really hard for each other. And so it's the combination of the consumer sort of pull and that internal sort of belief that I think gets brands through. And that's certainly what got Innocent through the tough times.
Yeah, because I've heard you talk, and Libby talks about this better versus different proposition as kind of a common thread through most of the brands you invest in. I'd love to kind of tease that out, and then we can talk about this internal versus external.
Yeah.
So I think first, because there's a lot of people I've spoken to, it's like, and I even did like a little talk about this, which is be different, not better.
Yeah.
And it's almost like everyone says they're better.
Yeah.
We're more prebiotic, we're more probiotic, more blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
Be different, and you kind of create a category of one, right?
Yeah.
But what you've said is the be different and better.
Yeah,
So I think just setting the scene, like what is define different and then define better, please.
So in terms of different, you've got to stand out. You've got to actually find a way of not only not doing exactly what everyone else does, but communicating that as well. And for Innocent, it was really clear. It was like everyone was all about multicolours, really garish and bright branding. And with Innocent, we went completely pared back, very simple, and that was just different. It just looked different. And, different can be on the aesthetics like that. It can be in the taste. It can be on the tone and attitude. It can be on many different things. But I think being different and has to be across a number of different directions or parameters, basically. So I think being different is important to sort of be different across the board, across everything that matters to consumers, be it the design, the look of the feel, the taste, the tone, and what you stand for. And I think that's what we managed to do well at Innocent. We were really quite distinctive versus all the other drinks competition. And then being better, well, for us actually, it was we tasted a lot better than what was out there. And that's subjective, obviously, but actually that's what people fundamentally care about in a food product. And all the stuff around the way we talk, the pictures we drew, the silly jokes, that was all secondary to the fact the products were great. And obviously, better didn't mean everybody found them delicious, but on average, people would definitely prefer ours to pretty much anything else out there. And we spent all our efforts on doing that, and then the funny little sort of marketing bits were the add-ons. So it was absolute focus on the product. That was the heart of all the marketing that we ever did.
So almost the better is the product angle, and the difference, the culture, and the branding.
Yeah, obviously, yes, exactly. So if you're better, you are different to some extent, but you need more than just being sort of tasting better. If we were just tasted better but had exactly the same packaging, exactly the same look, tone and feel as everyone else, I don't think the business would have worked. You kind of need to do both at the same time.
What would you say is more important, different or better?
I think you've got to do both.
I
think you've got to do both. I think that's the point. You've got to do both.
Interesting.
Because you otherwise just don't, if you're better but it's the same. No one notices you. It's you grow very slowly, if at all. If you're different but not better, you get noticed, and no one then uses you, comes back again. So you kind of need both, and that's the thing with business. Business is hard, right? Starting a business is hard. You need to get everything lined up. You can get 9 out of 10 things right, and if that 10th thing is a key thing, business may not work. So that's why it's a rare thing for businesses to work, and anyone who's doing it is. It's a bloody hard work and a challenge, right? But the rewards are great when you get it right.
I want to go into this. I think I talked about with you this on the call, mate, which was this 5 whys like framework, and I find it really interesting. We're kind of combining the be different and better with the five whys. Basically, 5 whys allows you to get deeper and deeper and deeper into like the root cause of things. And I almost think people listen to this. You've got level 1 brands, which would be something at like a the food market in Barnes. That's level 1. Level 2 would be a Whole Foods, Planet Organic. Level 3 would be someone like in a Sainsbury's or a co-op store. Level 4, blah, blah. Level 5 would be an Innocent, a Tony's, a Vita Coco, fill in the Urban Legend, fill in the blank. I'd love to know. And I asked Giles this question, and I was like, how did you find that extra gear? To almost go down into that, and you've seen work with so many brands. How do you go from like a level 3, which would probably be that 4 million mark, 4 to 5 million mark where people get stuck? What's the extra things you've got to do to kick on, to build an Innocent, to build a Vita Coco?
I think there's an obsessiveness that you need to really want to improve everything all the time. And I think that obsessiveness was definitely there at Innocent, be it make the packaging slightly more eco, make the packaging slightly funnier, make it slightly cheaper, make it slightly more appealing. Same with the product, same with the deals we do with our distributors, the constant, John always talks about Kaizen, the Japanese continual self-improvement on manufacturing. And that was definitely a sort of a culture that we imbued throughout Innocent, which is not being happy with the status quo, always restlessly trying to improve things. And that's difficult because, you've got pulled in constant different directions as a business, but actually you just can't stand still. You can't say, I've got a product, right, I'm going to go out and sell it now. It's like that product will get caught up, other people do it, and it won't be different or better if you don't move forward in 6 months. So I think that's one of the things we did really well, actually, is constantly, restlessly wanted to make things better.
So that's almost like a kind of a top line, almost like a cultural thing, really. Like
a culture, definitely.
Relentless pursuit of betterness, myriad of different ways to say it. And then I suppose, and again, this is all case by case. But what would you say are some of the hires you need to go from, say, a 4 million level 3 brand to like we're going to start building into a real big household brand?
I think one of the things that we realised early on was actually we hired a people person well before businesses of our size would normally hire a people person, because actually we realised that people was the heart of what the business was about. And that actually was a really important hire, so that often the people side sort of gets left behind, and you talk about the revenue, the gross margin, the profit, and we've got to make sure people are happy. And that was not the way we thought about it. It was like, if you've got a really highly functioning team with great people in that are stretched and motivated and well trained, that will then deliver the results. And so it was turning it the other way around, really putting the people side first. And I think that was one of the lasting legacies of the business.
And then, was there anything you did? I know.
And sorry, just to finish off on that, because you sort of asked about hires. I think at first we sort of hired generally sort of bright generalists to do the job, and that's kind of right, because we didn't really know what the jobs were, and you sort of needed to do that. But then there needed to be a change at some point where we needed to get some expertise in, and I was sort of running the commercial sales bit, and I'd never really done it. And I remember hiring the first key account manager who really knew her stuff in terms of supermarkets, and it was like, oh my gosh, right, that's how you do it. And it was like, oh, okay. Real expertise, that's going to improve our business. And so it was then blending proper deep expertise with sort of general smarts, and that made for a powerful combination, not just saying hiring from outside, not just hiring internally, but actually blending the two, and made the business really work.
And we've talked a lot about and we're going to get onto the alumni almost. How specifically in the interview process, like what were you doing to what were you specifically, not necessarily you, but what were you specifically asking to be like, this is the right person, both in terms of like attitude and aptitude? Because I think you said something which I thought was amazing, which is I'd rather have a hole than an arsehole, right? I think that's just...
I think we can nick that from Apple or something.
But still, like we'll explore that. But what were you doing in the interview process to like make sure you weren't getting arseholes in? Yeah.
So I think early on we codified what the values of Innocent were, and sort of everyone does this now, and it's not that groundbreaking. But I think at the time it was relatively uncommon, and we put those values up on the backs of the toilet doors and at the start of every presentation, and in the induction, and up in the kitchen above the toaster. And so it was inculcated into the business. And the first interview with anyone was around those values, and it was always making sure that someone was on values before worrying about the skill levels that they had and whether they could do the job. And that was really important to making sure tonally and culturally the people that brought in fitted and weren't arseholes, and were quite the opposite, were people who added to the great genetic mix of Innocent. And I think that was probably the most important thing to do. And then, of course, you need to check that someone can do the job. So you've got to know what the job is, and that was a bit of discipline about writing it down and saying, okay, these are the responsibilities, and then testing people, doing case studies, and not being a bit lazy in the interview of just sort of, I get on with them, let's hire them. It was actually, let's check they can do the job they say they can do. And that takes time and effort. If you're hiring for a salesperson, giving them a load of data, or maybe in a situation that you're trying to sell into a customer with, and giving them enough to get their teeth stuck into so that they can actually show what they can do with the information and the sell that you've given them. That takes them a lot of energy and takes you a lot of energy to put it together, but it means you start hiring really great people.
Because I know what you said, as you say, it's kind of like commonplace now. A lot of times your brands codify the values, put it on the wall. One thing that kind of fascinates me, and I've seen it happen, and I've interviewed people, they've said this, is like you put the values on the wall, but it doesn't necessarily translate to the actual behaviours day to day. From, again, everyone venerates their time at Innocent. They genuinely said like this. The culture is what you say outside and inside. It like they link together. Because I think sometimes what you can see on a company website or on a toilet wall is like, well, hang on, mate, this doesn't line up.
We used to talk about the sticker rock test. So like a sticker rock just has that words all the way through, and it's consistent. And so wherever you cut it, stick of rock, like literally the old candy that you get. It's kind of had the words written in, like I love Blackpool or something like that. And it said I love Blackpool consistently all the way through wherever you cut it, and that was exactly the sort of thinking. It's like wherever you cut Innocent, you should feel and touch the same culture. So wherever you interact with us, whether it's being a supermarket buyer or a consumer at shelf, or someone cleaning out the bins, and it basically feels Innocent all the way through.
So maybe how would you do that? Like, how would you treat the cleaner in the office? Not you specifically, but like that. I think that could be an interesting lens to explore this.
I mean, I think you're really clear on the values, and then the bit I suppose I didn't say, and you alluded to, is on behaviours. It's like, okay, so what does that mean? If you're living up to the values, these are the sorts of ways you behave, and so making it actually sort of obvious for people what the values mean in behaviour terms. And I think calling out people who've lived by the values. And there was a sort of, I can't remember what we called it at the time, but it was essentially Employee of the Month, and that was sort of voted on by other people who've gone above and beyond and really demonstrated the values. And so every month we'd call that out, and it was a bit of fun. Someone got £100 to go and eat in a restaurant or something, and it was just. With anything, you've just got to keep communicating the same thing, and then it gets through. And we were really consistent on that. On the values. The values we wrote 4 years into the business, 3 or 4 years in, were the values that are still up on the toilet doors now. So they haven't changed. The behaviours underpinning them haven't changed, and I think everyone knew what was expected of them. And I think that's really important.